Howdy folks, welcome back to another live stream. Apologies for the delay. You should be pretty used to it by now though. And I had some internet issues, plus I was just running late. I thought giving myself an extra 5 minutes to start the stream would be enough, but apparently not. But let's get going. Let me know if the audio is good, if the video is good. I'm in a little box today. It's a little bit different, but I'm trying to lower the resolution, and so I'm just like squeezed in. I guess I have to do it like that. I'm also redoing my office a little bit. You can see that's a stud, and this is a not stud. That's a wall stud. So I'm building a wall for my office, and I still need to finish it, so it's not anything to look at. But hopefully I'll have a nice wall soon, and we'll have something to look at. Hopefully my audio is good as well. So today, like the last stream, we started on the cross-browser testing hackathon for Applitools. We're going to get to that in just a minute, but first I've got some questions. So let's see. Hi, Kevin. I've watched a couple of your Puppeteer videos. I was wondering if you could shoot a quick email asking for some direction on a specific topic. I can get in touch. You can. I have on my site, I have a contact page. So blog/kevinlamping.com, and you go to contact Kevin, and I'll send that in there. And I welcome any and all emails. I try to answer them as quick as I can, but usually takes a week or two. If you have a more urgent need for like something that you're working on for work, I do have a code mentor page as well, where you can do one-on-one sessions with me throughout the week, and it for some reason is taking a while to load, unfortunately. Let's see. Yeah, my computer is doing all right. It's probably just Code Mentor that's taking a little bit of time. Yeah, you hit the Let's Chat button and we start a session, and I've done a few of these and they're really fun and they can get you a lot of help. And this is like I just have this huge stack of things that I have to work on, and this kind of bumps you to the top of that stack with a little bit of help there. So let's get to it. Yeah, Puppeteer is fun, and you can actually use WebdriverIO with Puppeteer now, or Puppeteer with WebdriverIO, kind of both. Pretty neat addition there. So let me have a drink of my tea to wake up. And please say hi in chat if you're listening or watching, and let me know, are you doing dishes? That's what I like to do when I watch live streams, is like do dishes or something that kind of mindless so that I can listen along. But yeah, what we were working on is there is an app that we were testing last time, and we got through task 1. Can I please put it in? Please put it comments. I think I sent a link in the comments to my contact page. If you're interested in the Code Mentor page, I can post that as well. Let me know if that works. So it's just a shoe store, and we're testing it. There's 2 versions, the old version and the new version, and they're supposed to be identical, but there are some differences. You can see in the old version there's no filters, but in the new version there is. Also, from a responsive standpoint, if I toggle to the viewport, I'll switch this over. A bug that we discovered was that the search input shows on the small or the mobile view when it shouldn't be showing. So that was a bug. And you can also see in this view the grid and the different layouts show. And I don't know if, yeah, those layouts are there. So that would be another bug. So let's look at that test real quick and kind of walk through a little bit of what we had going on. So we have our configuration files. This is using WebdriverIO. A WebdriverIO, if you're unfamiliar with it, is a test framework, automated test framework. It uses WebDriver, but can also use Chrome DevTools/Puppeteer. And I have some videos on it, so check my channel for, I think it's probably my pinned video is on there if you want to learn more about it. So we have our configuration file, nothing too fancy. I have a timeout that I can set to a larger amount of time if I need to debug and I don't want the test timeout. I also have an app version, so this will load a different version of the app. If we go back to our page, you see we have Grid Hackathon version 1 and then Grid Hackathon version 2. So that toggles that depending on which site we want to test. We're testing in Chrome. And this is the URL using Chrome driver. And that's about it. If we go to our traditional test, it was a pretty basic test. We load the home page and let's pull up the page objects. So the home page has a URL, load just loads the URL. We have a header component that has the main menu, the search box, and the search box submit button. And we didn't write too many tests because they were kind of the same idea, which is just checking to see that elements are shown or not. So here we check that 2 elements are displayed and displayed in the viewport. This is using the new expect WebdriverIO assertion that was added in version 6 of WebdriverIO. We also set the window size, so we test it in laptop view, tablet view, and mobile view, 2 different window sizes. So these are our traditional tests. Oh, you think it's good to use a light theme? Oh, this one's so pretty. That's a good feedback. Let's go with that one. And what's the other one? The theme? Yeah. Something... bit too light. Sure, we'll go with the default. Thank you for that feedback. I will definitely keep that in mind going forward. So yeah, that's our traditional test. And we ran the test, and in version 1, so to run the test, we'd come here and we'd do npx WDIO, and we would just do spec equals traditional tests v1, and the reason is we don't want to run these modern tests just yet, so we'll run the traditional tests. Make that a little bit larger so you can see it. Yeah, and so that would run, and I'm not going to run it right now because it takes a few minutes, but everything passes. Now say we want, and this is on the version 1, so this one, everything passes like you think it should, which it should. To test version 2, we'll do version equals 2. And back to our configuration file. It checks to see if the version is equal to 2. If it is, then it sets it to 2. Otherwise, it sets it to 1. This variable gets passed in to our URL. And so it loads that. And if we run this, we have some test failures because, like I mentioned, on mobile view in version 2, the search bar is visible when it shouldn't be. So that is expected because they added bugs, or they left bugs in on version 2. And so that's what you were trying to check. Now, the other thing we did last stream is we wrote some modern tests. So one of the items to complete in this hackathon was multiple browsers and viewports. So we got the viewports down in our test, but we didn't get the multiple browsers. We had to do Firefox and Chromium. If we were on Windows, this wouldn't be too difficult. We could go into our capabilities and we could set, add a few capabilities to add Firefox and Edge. But we are not on Windows, we're on a Mac, and so that's a little bit more difficult. So we'd have to use something like Sauce Labs, which is why you saw I had a Sauce Labs configuration here. And in theory, that would work. We could add our capabilities in there to run in the multiple browsers. But we didn't get to that because it wasn't really worthwhile showing, because it's just going to run. Now, one of the parts of this hackathon is to use the ultra-fast grid. Let that load back up. And the way the ultra-fast grid works is you run your tests in a browser, Applitools saves the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, all the code for the page, and then it sends it to its own grid. This is kind of like Sauce Labs, but it has its own grid of browsers and mobile devices. Takes the snapshot and then reports it back to you. The benefit of this is instead of having all of the browsers run the test individually, you have one individual test, you get to where you want to take the screenshot. So if you have like a login flow, that takes a lot of time. You'd have to do that across 8 different browsers. Here you only do it once. And then when you get to the page that you want to test, then you take the screenshot, or not the screenshot, you take the snapshot of the page code and you send it to the Applitools ultra-fast grid, and it takes screenshots of everything and returns the results. So those results look like this. So here we have our task 1, and there is our screenshot, and there was actually a change here between the two. So if we go, we can show this is version 1 of the app, this is version 2 of the app, and you can see it's highlighted the differences. We added a region here, even though I don't actually think we want that region. We can just leave it highlighted, and we can either accept these changes or don't reject them, accept or reject them. I was nice, so I accepted the changes, but if they're not changes that you want, you would reject them. And if we look at our list of browsers, you see we have 3 Chrome in the different viewports, 2 Edge and 2 Firefox. I wonder why that's... Let's look at that. So we'll go to our test, and we set it up in our test. We set 1 Chrome, 2 Chrome. I wonder why we have 3 Chrome here. Oh, the 3rd Chrome is the iPhone, which is here. So that's why we have 3 Chrome and then 2 of the others, which is what we wanted, because we're going to test 7 browsers. If I jump back over here, yeah. 3 on Chrome, boop, boop. 2 on Firefox, 2 on Edge. So let's look at that test some more, and then I saw there was another comment in chat that I'll get to. How our test works, it's kind of similar down here, but we only have one it statement. We can actually look at these side by side. We have our before call that does the home.load. You'll see the same thing here. Then we open the eyes SDK, pass in some information to it. Then we run our test. So basically it takes a screenshot of the entire window. And because we've set up this configuration, it's going to take that screenshot in multiple browsers for us. We set that configuration in there. And then at the end, we do a little bit of cleanup to try and close the session. And if it fails to close, we abort it and really close it. So a lot more simple of a test, and adds those 6 other browsers to test in without having to do this set window height or set window size. It takes care of it here. These are the dimensions of the page here. So it's a little bit less work there. So it's kind of neat. That's how all that worked, and that was our task. So let's check that question. Okay, so the question is, how can we get the capabilities required like Firefox, Edge apart from Chrome? We can look at that real quick. Let's go to the WebdriverIO docs and go to configuration. There we go. And we want to look at capabilities. So in WebdriverIO, you can set multiple capabilities. And let's get rid of some of this extra stuff we don't need. You can also run multiple tests at the same time. I'm going to set this down to 5. If I do, actually, I'll set this down to 3. If I do too many, it's going to just completely crash my browser because I'm streaming and all sorts of stuff. So we'll go here. Whoops. So our capabilities are passed in as a JavaScript array with a set of objects in it. So if we wanted to test on Firefox, we would do browser name Firefox. And we can probably get rid of that. And say we wanted to test on Edge. If we had Edge installed, which we don't because it's a Mac, we would type in browser name Edge. To do this in Sauce, we would go to the Sauce platform configurator. We choose WebDriver, select a device, we do PC, operating system, Windows 10, and then our browser, the latest Edge browser. Go to Node.js and copy these capabilities over. Oh, I think they changed this style. I don't think it used to be like that. It's a lot nicer now. And let's say we go to here, capabilities, create an array, and then inside that array, we add our browser. And then we'll come back and we'll choose a Chrome browser. Copy that, comma, paste it. Could probably leave out sauce options, it's not really needed. And then we can do the same thing with Firefox as well, if we wanted to. So that's how we would test it using Sauce Labs. Yeah, I think I tried running it through Sauce and it didn't work for some reason, so I didn't want to get too bogged down in those details. But let's undo some of that. Oops, don't close it. Save it, and there we go. Okay, so that was kind of the recap from last time. Let's jump into our next task. And that was task 1. Now we're going to do task 2. We want to filter for the black shoes and ensure that there are only 2 black shoes and everything works and looks good. So let's see. Say I'll close that. I want to be able to filter by color. I might need to refresh the page. The other thing I want to do is I want to turn on some music because I have headphones on, but I'm not actually listening to anything. There we go. You don't get to listen though. Where were we? Here and here. So click black. Oh, and I need to click filter. There we go. That's what I didn't do. And now I have 2 shoes. And there's the highlighted one and the filter. So we should be able to do the same thing. Filter. Uh-oh. That's not filtered. Why is that not filtered? I wonder what the difference is. There might be something in like the data that got moved over. I mean, they added this to fail anyway, so it's, you know, expected that there's going to be a failure. Oh. Yeah, okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and write our test for this. Now, they had some notes on the traditional approach. We're going to start with the traditional approach and then move on to the modern visual AI approach. There's a question, ever tried the native WebdriverIO visual regression service? I have, and it's pretty good. I think that it's funny with the not really built in, but you know, the visual regression services throughout the years. I think it started with WebDriver CSS in version 3, then WebdriverIO was updated and WebDriver CSS fell behind, and then it was updated to version 4, and then that worked for a little bit. It was pretty functional, not as functional as I think this latest version is. And then WebdriverIO was updated to version 5, and then the visual regression service fell out of date again, and then it took a while for somebody to get it in place. And then now version 6 is out, but I'm pretty sure it still works with version 6. But I think it's really functional, and I think it's really good for kind of proof of concept ideas in small sites. When you start getting to bigger sites, it gets really difficult, in my opinion, to handle the number of screenshots you have to take. And basically not actually running the code, but managing all the different screenshots. And so that's one of the things that I really like about Applitools, and also Percy.io, is it has this user interface for you to look, and you can click and you can go in and you can see the differences. You can sort them side by side. You can change different items. You can move from one diff to another, jump around, and then you can say yes or no, and then move to the next item, and then save the results that you like. And then somebody who isn't a tester can come in and look at this dashboard and say, oh, there's a failure. Maybe like your designer, your project manager, or not your project, your product owner can come in and say, okay, what's going on here? Oh, the filter got added. Okay, that's fine. We wanted to add the filter, so that's perfect. So I'm going to approve this. This is actually good difference, and move through. So I think one of the real benefits of a paid service over the visual regression framework is this dashboard that you just don't get with the visual regression service, as far as I know. I don't think it has it. Yeah. One thing I like is that it does use Resemble.js, which is a really popular image library, comparison library. I thought this was going to take me to the home page. Yeah, it's kind of cool. You can actually compare two images right here, and the diff will appear. It makes it a really good demo for teaching visual regression testing, just to kind of show that. But that's really nice. And then, oh, if you want to compare images online, you can use the oh, yeah, that's this. By the way, I really like these questions. I think they're really good and help kind of break up the staleness of just going through pure code. The setup is a little bit tricky. I think this is a better setup than what there was before. The image name format, I've never had an image name format that is specific enough. Maybe I have had one, but it seems like once you get into, you have your different browser, you have your different operating system, you have your different resolution of that browser, and the element name, I guess that's the tag here. So you need like this super long image name in order to have it specific enough, because otherwise you run your tests on Chrome on OS X, and then your coworker runs them on Edge in Windows. They're gonna fail because there's just too many differences between the two browsers, OSs, whatever. So yeah, that's something to watch out for. And that's another part about Applitools specifically. And by the way, this live stream is being sponsored by Applitools. They've asked me to go through this hackathon with you, and so just want to give a shout out to them for helping make this happen. Check them out if you haven't checked them out. So I'm gonna talk a lot about Applitools. I'm gonna try not and be too salesy about it, but I do think it's a really valuable tool, and I think it is worth the cost if you have the right setup. You may not need it if you have a really small site, but if you've got an enterprise site, definitely. If you're working on even like a small WordPress site, something more complicated than a single page, you're going to want to use this dashboard. If you're working on a team larger than just yourself, you're going to want to use a dashboard. It's really going to be helpful. Yeah, and look, there's even like A/B testing. Could you imagine trying to handle visual regression testing if you had some sort of A/B test in place? This kind of adds a lot of these features for you. So what was I saying? That talking about, oh, here with the didn't show, but there is a way you can scope out different regions. So there's a region that you can just completely ignore. I don't want to worry about this. Say you have like an ad space. You just want to ignore it. It's going to change too much. But if you have an ad space, then you could say, I just want to check that the ad is a certain size, that there's an image here that's a certain size. So you can use a layout region, and it's gonna run through the code and evaluate it to say that yes, the image changed, but the overall layout didn't. So we want to keep that. Content region says that there's text on this page, and the text is going to change, but the overall format is not. So that's a content region. Floating region is basically you have a element that can be shifted over left or right. Say you have like a loading indicator and you want to take a screenshot of the loading indicator or something. You would add a floating region because then the loading indicator could move a little bit, but it still is validating that the loading indicator is there. So that's another great thing about this tool is that it adds these regions that are smarter than just in the visual regression service, which only allows you to exclude certain parts. So it doesn't have that intelligence behind it. Okay. Another question. I'm getting a fibers error while upgrading from version 4 to version 5 and asking you to install Python. Why would we need to use Python? I'm not sure that you still need to use Python in WebdriverIO version 5. Let's check the blog. Go to WebdriverIO version 5 and let's search Python. It doesn't say in here. Let's see if it talks about it here. At some point, WebdriverIO dropped requiring Python specifically because of fibers. There was fibers is how async mode works in WebdriverIO, and I'm not even sure if they're still using fibers. Let me see, go back. Not in there either. Let me see. No, not there. Oh, did it come with a result? So there might be some issues with Node.jip or have an unsupported Node version. I'm guessing you might have an older version of Node installed. You can always check that by going node-v, and that'll tell you the version. Version 12, I believe, is the supported version, the officially supported version. It says it here. Okay. Yeah, I think version 12 is the officially supported version, but I've been running it through version 10 for a while now, and it works just fine. I don't think there's any reason why I'm not using 12. It's just, yeah. Okay, so you're using Node 8. I bet that's probably it. You probably want to update to Node 10 or 12 and try it out. Even though this is version 6, yeah, you might want to switch that. Let's see if I can find fibers in here. Okay, so fibers is still being used, but yeah, I don't see anything on Python. Update sync with fibers. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, I think at some point fibers switched from needing to use, I think it had something to do with Node.jip and fibers in Python, but you shouldn't have to use Python anymore. And you shouldn't have to use Java anymore. It should all be Node. Yes. Okay. So I'll close all this. Great questions. Keep them coming and try and answer them. Do close that. as we go. So what were we talking about? Here, report the test results just like you did for task 1, and append the test results below the results from the previous test run results. Okay, so there was a test reporter format that they wanted, and we didn't really get into it. So that's not too applicable right now. We might get into that in stream number 4 to look at a custom WebdriverIO reporter to build that out, but that's not much. So we're going to do this. Come over here. That's task 1. Create a new file, and let's call it task 2. I'm going to paste in the kind of, I think works and looks good. Kind of the requirements. And then let's copy over a few things. We'll copy that over. And then close that. And we do want to run this in multiple views. And let's see. If I come back here. Hi, Paul. Thanks for saying hi. Anybody else who's joined, say hi in chat. How's it going? Sort by popularity. So there's the filter right there. Then we'll click black, scroll down, hit filter. So it's a little bit different on mobile than it is on desktop. So we should kind of keep this style in place. I'm wondering if there's going to be a way that we can avoid copying and pasting this set window size, but we'll see about that when we get to it. Okay. Filter functionality is what we'll call it. We'll load the home page, laptop view. We want to set the window size. Should to filter by color. So to do the filter for the black shoes on laptop view, we'll switch back to laptop view. The filters should work. So we can make a nice little component here. This will be fun. Of the filter types. So let's come back here. I'll copy that over and we'll call this a filter. What do you want to call it? Like filter menu? Sure. Filter menu. What are we going to have in our filter menu? We're going to have the name of the filter. Okay, so in our constructor, we're going to pass in the name. Yeah, we can just call it the name. Oops, this dot name is equal to name, and then let's get the, I like to call it the origin, and basically it is the kind of the container element. So sidebar filters, filter type. Oh, look, you can collapse them. Nice. Yeah, it's kind of the container element, but sometimes I found that I don't really want, there are times when it's not the container element. So that's why I've gone with the origin. So origin is like what all the other selectors are based off of when we want to find this. So we will do origin, and hopefully this makes a little bit more sense in a minute. But we have an H4. So to get that origin, I'm going to use this ID selector because it's a really nice selector. And then I'm going to say h4 equals and then we're going to pass in the name. Get that right. This dot name. And then we're also going to have a container. We're going to have our filter options. We're going to have a function called toggle option name. And so what that's going to do is you're going to pass in the name. So here we're going to pass in black, and it's going to click this checkbox for us. But you could do like soccer, and then that'll be the type and everything. Switch back over to our code again. And I kind of want to make sure that this works. So I will save that, and we're going to call it filter menu. And then in our home page, we're going to do get filter menus. And okay, so what I want to do, let's write how we want our test to work. We want to do home dot filters. We want to pass in the, switch back over, colors. Options. Actually, we want to do, what was that? Toggle option. And, I really should have written how I want the test to look before building out this. I kind of like writing out how I want the test to look first, even though like this isn't going to work because it doesn't exist yet. But it gives me a good kind of code design to write to build out my page object. So we're going to do filters, and I'm debating right now between passing in the filter name here or building out all the filters on when this page object gets built out. Passing in the name is a little bit, I would say it's a little bit more performant because you're not having to build out the full page object when you start up your test. It's only when it's being used that you built it out. But honestly, the performance hit is probably very minuscule. I don't think it's going to take much time to really build these filters out. So that's kind of why I'm hesitating about it. It would be nice if we could do something like we have an array of filter names. What are they? We got type, colors, brands, and price. So type, colors, brand, and price. So these are our filter names. We're going to do a map function. And let's clean this up a little bit. So constant filter names is equal to that. We'll take the filter names. We're going to map over this array. So we're going to go one by one in the array and do something with this value. And this isn't going to work that way because I need to return an object. So what I can do is instead I'll do a for each, and I'll create a constant of filter components. It's going to be an empty object, filter components, name, and we're going to, actually, we're not going to return anything. For each is like map, almost the same as map, but in for each, you just go through each item in an array. You don't return anything. And so what we want to do is we want to do filter components. We're going to do name. We're going to do equals a new filter menu. Whoops. And we're going to pass in the name. So at the end, we're going to return the filter components. So we create an empty object. We define our filter names. You know what? Let's do this. Just to make it a little bit more usable if we want. So we'll store this on, we'll store the filter names on the home object or the home class, and then that way we can reference it here, and if we wanted to reference it here, we could as well. This dot filter names for each. And we get the name of the filter. We create a new filter name based off of that name, or filter menu based off that name, store it in our object under the name of, under the property of that name, and then return it. Okay. So what I want to do is basically confirm that this works. So I'm going to log out that filter of colors, and I should get a kind of object out of that. So let's run this. We're going to do npx WDIO. We only want to run task 2. So or else we could just do spec equals task 2, because right now there's only a task 2. There's not, in our modern test, there's not a task 2. Ooh, let's see how that goes. Oops. I wanted to do this silently. There, so we have a filter menu with a name of colors on it. Good. So I'll undo that. And then I want the toggle option. And I'm going to pass in the option I want to toggle. Now I could, in here, do options and kind of store it the same way that I have it here. But that's a lot to have to copy over from the page. Like imagine if you have, maybe we already have over 20 options here. That's just gonna be a lot to have in our test. I just don't see a reason for. If you just joined, we are looking at the cross-browser testing hackathon by Applitools and testing 2 pages. Right now we are filtering using WebdriverIO to test that we can filter the shoes on a page by a color. So that's what we're up to. Right now we want to build out our toggle option function. Yeah. Filter options. I don't know if this is going to be needed. We are going to need the container. So the next thing I want to test real quick, I will comment that out. I want to double check that my origin works. Whoops. There. Do.is displayed. That's what we'll do. Let's run that real quick. We got a question. How to hide sauce credentials and how can I assign as an environment variable? That is a very good question because you definitely want to do that. Let me double check real quick. Okay, so it returned true. You see there. And before I forget, I'm going to set the log level to silent. That way we only get our console logs out there. Okay, so it did find the origin. So basically we go through the sidebar filters element, and then we do a sub search of there of the h4 of name. Now, you might be wondering if I could do just like this. And if we weren't using this text-based selector, we could. But because we're using a text-based selector, we have to separate them out for using. So this is a CSS selector, and then this is a WebdriverIO text-based selector. Okay, to answer the question in chat about hiding sauce credentials. So you would set it under a sauce username and a sauce access key. And then to store your credentials, you would create, it depends on what system you're on, but basically you just have to search for how to set environment variables. And there's going to be a few options in there. Okay, so it's got there. You set it using in Windows. It's a little bit more complicated, I think. In OS X and Linux, you're going to use the export command. And so you could do that every time. You could do when you run it. I'm going to do that. Okay. No, I don't want to paste 2 lines. I want to... So I'll set that, and then I can check it by doing an echo. There's the value that got passed in. And then you probably don't want to run that every single time you open up a terminal. So you need to know how to add that to... basically, when you start your terminal up, it loads those environment variables. Alternatively, there is a tool called .env, which is really nice. I don't know if it comes in Node.js by default or if it's an NPM package, but basically you set it through there. So that's kind of how you do it. It really depends on what you want to do. So I don't want to get too into the details, but and it also depends on if you're, so I'm using iTerm 2, and but if you're using the plain terminal, it also depends. But there's something called a bash profile and a bash RC file and a bash, I think like a dot profile, and all of these things run at a certain time. I think I just don't know which one you want to edit. I can't ever remember. One of them runs when the computer starts up, one of them runs when you open a new terminal, and one runs when you log in or something. I don't know, but you got to look it up on how to do that. Another question: is there a way of controlling the order spec files are executed? Had an issue the other day and I couldn't get my spec files to run in a specific order. Tried coding a suite with the spec files in the order I wanted, but it seemed to just ignore it. I don't think there is a way to make them run, although I think they run alphabetically by the file name. So, yeah, I think that's how it happens. If we really wanted to get into it, we would go into the runner, I think. Specs. Starts a session. What What is specs? List the specs files to run. Yeah. Framework.init. What's this .framework? Initialize plugin, config framework. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure it's by the file name alphabetically, but so you could probably do like 1 dash and then the file name, 2 dash and then the file name, and it should run in that order. I wouldn't rely on it long term because I don't think there's anything official about how they're run. Yeah. That actually is a more common question that's asked. I think the general idea is that you probably shouldn't have them need to run in a specific order. You said that you I was trying to get the register spec to run before the login spec. You kind of want those test files to exist in a silo to where they can run independently without having the other one. And one big reason for that is if you have an error in your login spec that you're trying to debug, you don't want to have to run your register spec every single time in order to get the login spec to run. So you should be able to run your login spec entirely on its own. And what you can do is use something like an API to create a user. So I'm guessing you have a register spec that creates a user, and then you use that user that's created to run your login. You really should have your register only test register things, and then your login either use an existing user that you've pre-built or use a API page. So I can show you from my book, the Web App Testing Guidebook. I actually cover how to do that. Down. Don't freeze up on me. Come on. Come on. Testing the login page. Yeah, speeding up login via APIs, and then also creating a new user at the very end. So if I give me just a second. Testing book. Oh, not that one. It's WDIO book examples, and then utils. Whatever. I have an API function. Oh, awesome. So check in. So you said that you bought it, and yeah, check near the end of the book if you want to take a look at how to create a profile. So here's a basically a way that I create a profile. So where do I use that? I use that in the final chapter. So if we go to test specs, and then it is the profile page here. So I have a profile page, a user profile page, and I actually did a live stream about this 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think it's something profile page, testing profile pages. And I actually walk through how I do this API version. So I create a new profile here, email, password, and then I also create a new article, and then I log in via the API. If you're on the login page, you obviously don't want to be logging in via the API. You want to log in. Via the normal login method in order to test it. But yeah, that's what's going on there. And I do have a set of, oh man, keep barking up the wrong tree. Test specs, login. I do have a login test, which you probably have seen. Basically, you know, whatever. So you could do the same thing here. You could create this profile and then use it as your user. I just have some users already built out. Let me show you. I have a users file here that just has pre-built users for me. So that's kind of why WebdriverIO hasn't officially defined how to run specs in a specific order, because they kind of want you not to do that, just as a basic test guideline procedure. Okay, great question. I think a lot of people probably were thinking the same thing and are happy to have somebody ask it so that they don't have to. So back to where we were. I don't quite remember where we were. I'll leave that open for now. We can close that. We don't need it. We're on task 2. We just checked that the origin is displayed, so that's good. So this gets our origin. Then we can use that origin in a cool little way. This.origin. And what we want to do in our test is, okay, so we have this H4. We have this H4 selected. And now what we want to do is go up a element to the div to get the parent, the container. And then from the container, we want to get the div that has all our options on it. So to go up an element, it's not actually supported in CSS. You can't do this in CSS. But WebdriverIO is cool in that you can move around. You can basically mix and match your selectors. So here I have a CSS-based selector, and then I have this text-based selector, which is, this gets passed into WebdriverIO. WebdriverIO creates an XPath selector based off of it. So we can use an XPath selector here of a ... and that goes up a element. So it'll go from, go back to our page, it'll go from H4 to our div. And if you ever want, there is a CSS XPath cheat sheet, which is really helpful, this dev hints. I'll throw that in there. And it shows you side by side the CSS version and then the XPath version. And if we look at, I think it's called predicates, where is it? Axes. Child axis. One of these is parent. There we go, parent. So we do ... The other thing we could do is something like this and go to the sibling. But I'm going to go with the parent for now. So here I'll go to the origin and then the parent. And then I can use the container to do this .container, and then I can go back down into, go back to the page. We want to get all of our options. So we're going to do the div. So that ID changes between them. I think I'm just going to do li. So I'm just going to do a CSS selector of li, and I'm going to get multiple elements. So I'm going to change that here. And if you haven't watched my streams before, I like to put $signs in front of my element references and double $signs in front of my element array references. And the point of that is it easily tells me in my test that this is an element reference compared to this, which isn't an element reference, it's something else. So it just makes my test a little bit cleaner to work with. And let's go ahead and get rid of all that. So we got our filter options. So this gets all the LIs in the container. And now if I want to toggle the option, we're going to go to const option, and that's going to be a $ is equal to this dot filter options dot, I believe it's filter, or maybe it's like find one. Let's check the MDN docs. JavaScript array find one. Yeah. This sort of stuff never existed in the past. Find method returns the value of the first element in the provided array that satisfies the provided testing function. So it's not find one, it's just find. We used to have to use underscore or Lodash to do this kind of thing, but now we don't need to. So what we're going to do, we have this array of options, and this is going to be a bunch of elements. We're going to get that array, we're going to look through it to find the option, return something equal to option name. So this something has to be the name of the label. So I think what we can do is option.getText is equal to the option name. One issue that I see possibly having is, see how that has a space in front of it? They all have spaces at the end, not in front of it, at the end. So what we can do, actually, what we'll do is we're going to trim it, which is another native JavaScript thing. Basically, it cuts off any of the white space at the beginning or end of text. So we'll just call it .trim. So we're going to get the option, get the text of it, trim it, and compare it to the option name passed in. And I'm just going to change this to L, because I don't want two options to be named, even though that technically would work in the code. It's not the best, in my opinion, because it can be confusing. Like, why is option and option and an option? So I'm just going to go with element here. EL short for L. And then we should probably do a check. So if no option is passed in, then let's throw an error. Option of option name, whoops, not found. And then we could actually get all the option names if we wanted to and print that out here. Kind of say available options are, and then print out all the text from these filter options. I'm not going to worry about that. So basically, if this is returned as undefined, it's going to trigger here, and it's going to throw an error about it not being found. Okay, so otherwise, we're going to get that option. That option is going to be this li. We want to get the checkbox inside of it. So let's do $option. We'll do another selector. It's going to be an input of type checkbox. And then we're going to click it. And that's what we'll do in our toggle option method. So we can do that. And then let's go ahead and debug the page at that point. So it's going to pause the browser from running. And hopefully this all works. Jump back over to our terminal. To there. And I canceled it. I'm going to set debug equals to true so that it doesn't time out on us. Failing option of black not found. So it wasn't able to find that option. Let's do this. Const option names is equal to this dot filter options. There could be that that's not right, but Okay, so what I did here, we can close that to get a little bit more space. I basically map through all my filter options and get the text from them, store them here, and then pass it in. So that way we do have the option names, kind of what I was talking about a minute ago. Next, I want to log out that option, and then I'm guessing something about this isn't right. So let's log that out. Oh, just a few debugs. A few console logs. You know, in theory, I should be using a debugger, but I'm too lazy for that. It's just so easy to use the console log. So this is what's going on. It's returning extra text. And if I go back to here, the reason is there's extra text there because that's the number of items that it has. Oh, where is it? Okay, that's where that's coming from. Shoot. So what we can do now is instead of trimming this, we're going to do an includes call. So I'll go back to MDN and do includes. Yeah, so it's a string function that checks to see if it's part of the string. So we'll get this string and we're going to call includes on it. And now it should return the right thing. Includes checks that. So if we have here we have black 2 and it's going to check that black is in there. So it's not ideal. I would rather have a way of filtering out this value so that I can go with just that. I could probably think of a way to do that, but I'm not going to for the sake of time. So we can delete that and let's try running this again. Super confident this will work. There we go, it clicked it, which is exactly what we wanted. Here's that log of the element out. I can do exit. Perfect. So we'll get rid of that. And then let's double check that the this still works. And then, yeah, whatever. It's going to not, yeah, it's going to do this again with the numbers still in it. Whatever. Better than nothing. Okay. So toggle option. Then we want to do home dot filter. Let's do filter search. I don't know. We want to basically click the filter button. What type of selector we want to use, I'm not sure. But we'll click filter search. And when let's reset this. Go ahead and click that. I hit, clear this up. So this is an immediate action. It doesn't reload the page or anything. But thankfully, it looks like it's immediate. So even if I'm offline and I filter, yeah, it already has all the data on the page. We're not going to have to add any sort of weight. I don't foresee us needing to add any sort of weight here. It's pretty immediate. As soon as you hit filter, it filters it. I don't know. We might actually want to do that, because if you watch really quick, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when we get there how it works. Okay, so we want to do the filter search. So I need to add filter search. Now I won't need any of those containers. There's an ID filter button that I can use, but I would actually prefer to use a text selector of filter, because that is more in line with how the user is going to use the page. They're going to look for a button called filter and click it. They're not going to look for a button with an ID of filter button and click it. So we want to have our test kind of reflect what the user is more like, closer to what the user flow is. That's another reason why I'm going with clicking black instead of clicking the first item in the colors list. So that's pretty basic. Filter search, filter search. So we have a button selector, a filter search. We click it, and we're going to debug again. So let's come back here and run that one more time. We're probably going to go for another 30 minutes or maybe 45. I did start late. Cannot read property click of undefined. So filter search. That's in my filter menu. Whoops. Which I don't want in there. I want it in my home menu. So basically this element was in my filter menu component, which it didn't need to be. It needed to be in my home component, or my home page object. Yeah, so we got started a little bit late. Let's see, I've been going for about an hour 15. Perfect. So that's paused, and you see it applied the filter. And one nice thing, I don't know if you noticed, but it scrolled down for us. It didn't used to do that. WebdriverIO didn't used to scroll down for us, so we'd have to do scroll into view, but now we don't need to anymore, so that's nice. Now we want to get the number of results. So product grid, we're probably going to use that ID. I like that ID. And we're going to do get product grid. Go with that. And then we'll do products. Let's do visible products. And we're going to take that and return some sort of selector of the number of products available. So there is this class of grid item. If I change the sort, oh, it doesn't look like that functionality works. So I don't really even need to worry about that. Basically, I want to check for the grid items. So we'll do a class of grid item. So here we can do expect home dot $$ visible products to have children of 2. So it checks that we have 2 children, and everything works and looks good. This is going to be the hard thing to do about our traditional test, is the looks good part. That is not easy to do with a traditional test unless you're using something like visual regression testing, but that is tricky. But we should be able to at least double check that this works. And let's run this, and I want to, we can turn off debug true. I want to see if that delay that I had talked about is going to interfere. But it shouldn't, but it did for some reason. So it's pausing right now. It shouldn't do that. It means it's going to fail. Can't call $sign elector on element with selector product grid because element wasn't found. I did not use the right selector. I need to use a ID selector and not a class name selector. What in the world was I thinking? I think I finally got my stream settings down because it hasn't complained to me at all, which is good. And then my, yeah, my CPU is doing really well as well. That's good. I don't really know what I changed. I think the bitrate's a little bit lower than I used to have. Whatever. Just checking on something real quick. Okay, so our test passed. You know, one thing about the WebdriverIO expect library is that it would actually wait for the children to have a certain number. So if that was like 3 and I ran it again, it's gonna wait about 3 or 5 seconds to see if the number of children ever reaches 3. So there's a problem. It still passed. It should not have passed. And the reason that it passed is that when we hit filter and we checked, the number of elements was still... Why would it be at 3 though? That's funny. If I uncheck it, I can't click reset anymore in order to filter it. I can't click filter and I can't click reset. Why did it pass? So let's look at the HTML here. And I hit filter. We're going to do a break on subtree modification, and I hit filter. Elements, so where is it? Pause in the debugger, step over. Just want to see what happens to these elements. We're still at 1. If they start like disappearing one by one. Oh, now they're all gone. And then there's 2 left. That's really weird. Come on, play through. Turn that breakpoint off. Why did it? This is always a good thing to double check that your tests fail. Filter functionality should allow us to filter by that. Visible products. Let's see how many visible products there are. And then if I go to the assertion library, where is it? Okay, here it is. So down here to have children, checks amount of fetch elements using the $ command. Yeah. So this is using greater than 10, but we don't really need to use that. I don't understand why it would pass at 3 and also 4. That's strange. Let's run this test and see what we can get logged out. So that says 2. If it's 2, then why would it pass on 3? That's quite strange. A size. Let me see, element to have children, element number. I wonder if it's checking like, okay, to have children, an element or an element array, and then options. What are number options? To have children takes any number of arguments. See, to be elements, array of size, to have children. Oh boy, what happens if I change this to 1? And then what happens if I do like 3 and 2? So that's very strange. Why would that not be home visible products? That's, I mean, that did return just 2 in the length. Element click intercepted. Sometimes that happens, and I think it probably happened because I was not keeping the browser window running by itself. Yeah, there we go. So it still passed. That doesn't make any sense to me. What if I do, whoops, EQ. So that should say it has to be equal to 1. There, now it's failing because it's waiting for the size to equal 1. It must have some default if you don't pass in, if you only pass in a number. That's also different. Expected 1 and received an array of 1? None of this seems right to me. Elements. Yeah, those are the elements to have children. If we come back here, this is the to have children. It gets passed into to have children function. We either have a element or an element array. It should be passing in the element array. And then the options. These are number options. I don't know what those number options come from. It's a TypeScript thing. Number options equal, less than, or greater than, and these can all be, they're all optional. And let me run something real quick here. So instead of 1, I'm going to do 2, and let's see what comes from that. He still returned that. Okay, so it got there, and it should fail on the 3 instead of the 2 when it gets there. Expected to receive 2. What am I doing wrong? To be elements array of size. What if I do this one? Even though it says it's the same, let's try it and see how that goes. Because this is really confusing. Elements array of size. There, that passed. And then if I do 1, that should fail. So I don't even need that second one. So this should fail. I feel like to have children is not the same thing as to be elements array of size. So that might be incorrect. Greater than or equal either 1, 0. Options should be a object. I don't think you can pass in a number, just a number, to the to have children. You have to pass in a object. I don't think the number works. And I'm kind of surprised. Okay, yeah, expected 1, received 2. That's good. So my last question is if I pass in just the number, will that still work? Okay, now will it fail? Always a good question of will it fail? Thanks for sticking around and hanging out past the hour mark. It's been going for quite some time now. So it does fail at 1. So let's look at this to be elements array of size real quick, and then we're going to move on. But I do want to understand the difference. So that's to have children. I really don't think that to be elements array of size is the same as to have children. I really don't think so. That might need to be something updated. Okay, so this does kind of the same thing. We get our element array that's passed in, a size or number options, plus any other options we want to pass in. So here's a difference between to have children and to have elements of array size. And then if it's a number, we set equal to be the size. Then we use that in our assertion. So I think that's one of the bigger differences. And then the other thing is elements is received. Come back here. Yeah, element is the received element. Children, result.values. Is that? Here it doesn't have that children, right? Yeah. Here it doesn't have children. So I think to be elements array of size checks the elements passed in, or checks the set of the elements array passed in that it's a specific size. To have children, we'll look through either. So let's look at this page. Here we have our product grid. So this, okay, I think I understand what's going on. If I passed in to have children 2 on the product grid, it would pass because it has 2 children elements. Yeah. So we could do to have children 2 versus to be element size. So maybe this makes sense to you. We have our container object, and we're going to check that it has 2 children. Here we have our children that we specifically accessed, and we're checking that it's an element size of 2. Now, if I run this test, it should pass. And I think going back to our documentation, oops, that I closed, unfortunately. Let's let the test run. Good, that looked like it passed. It did, perfect. So that is the difference between the two. So definitely a difference between the two. And so this needs to be updated. Let's check and see if there's an issue for it. There is a to have children. Yeah, I just think this documentation isn't quite right, and we could actually use a few more examples here of what's going on. So that would be a nice thing to do to make it happen. Oh, we got a question. I'm having a question on JUnit report. JUnit report is created with a class name.js, so I can customize the class name without the browser name in the JUnit class without using regex. Not sure what the question is. Maybe you're still typing it. Maybe I jumped the gun on that. But yeah, can you clarify that? Oh, there. Okay, never mind. So can I customize the class name without browser name and JUnit class name without using regex? I honestly have no idea. I don't use JUnit that much, but let's jump into the documentation. Wrong reporter. Output file format. You might want to. Oh, it has to be regex. So you're probably looking at output file format. I don't know why JUnit, I can upload results in Qtest. JUnit report is created with a class name, class name.js without the browser name in the JUnit class name without using regex. I'm not sure. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know the answer for you. you might look at this, the output file format, and see if that is what you're looking for. Otherwise, I don't really know. Sorry. Rerun service. What's a rerun service? Service tracking failing tests, allowing failing or unstable tests or scenarios to be rerun. Rerun service. It's funny. It's just the rerun service. It's just the naming is a little bit. Huh, I've never seen this rerun service. I was curious about it because there's a retry method in WebdriverIO, or like a retry settings that would rerun failing tests. Maybe this is something different. Don't know. So then in chat, so giving a browser version, I don't require that. It didn't require the browser version. I honestly don't know. I'm not gonna be able to help you there because I just don't know JUnit that much. Sorry. Okay. Back to our test. Let's run this in version 2. So I'll set my environment variable to version 2 and we'll run the test. And this should fail now. Yes. See, it failed. How it has the 3 and it's taking a while to figure out. It's like, hey, what's going on? Why do we have 2 instead of 3? Why do I have 3 instead of 2? Yeah. Expected product grid. Oh, you know what? This to have children, I passed in a number. That needs to be a actual value. So I'm going to run that one more time because what happened was it's checking the elements array of size. So basically this one passed even though it shouldn't have. This one, and then this one failed because it actually checked it. The reason is to have children requires an object, whereas to be elements array of size does not. So this is running and it's taking a little bit of time. There we go. Expected product grid to have children. Expected to serializes to the same string. That was in the, yeah. What was this? This is to have children. Browser call, pass is not, options, message. I feel like something like here is wrong. No, that's right. What's the message? Oh, message, enhance error. Wrap expected with array. Yeah, something in this is just not reporting the right value here. So it's just a weird bug. So I think what I'll do is I'll just comment that out for now and we'll leave that one. So what happened was we ran this on version 2, and because version 2 has the bug in it to where it shows 3 values instead of 2, that's not good and things are not good. Now, what we could do to enhance this test, just because there are 2 results returning doesn't mean that they're the right results that we want to test. So what we'd probably want to do is check that the first option is the Applet Air Night, and then the second option is the Applet Air 720, that the price is right, that you want to check that this value looks, or the image is correct, that this percent is right and the timing is right and all this stuff. We don't want to really have to do that in our test because this is going to take a lot of work. So we're going to cheat. And the other thing, you know what? Let's what we have to do. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We want to do the mobile view, the tablet view, and the mobile view as well. Now from the tablet view, I don't think anything changes because this filter menu still exists. So if I set this to the iPad Pro and the iPad, what was our tablet view size? It was, oh, we got to look at the viewports. Utils constants. So we have tablet at 768 width. So yeah, in tablet view, you have to click filters first, wait for it to open, and then run. So in our test, what we'd need to do is first home.filter toggle click. And I'm just going to skip through actually writing this because it's nothing special. We just click this element, wait for it to show. It's an animation, and you could do some sort of test to make sure that the animation has finished, some sort of assertion. But what I like to do, because time is limited, is I look in the CSS and see this transform. That is telling me that's the animation property. And you see here, we have a time of 0.5 seconds. So 500 milliseconds. So I would just do a browser.pause of 500 milliseconds. I normally don't like doing browser.pause for arbitrary pauses, but this, we know specifically that it's half a second that we need to wait for this animation to run its course. And if we didn't wait, there's a chance it tries to click on this black element before it's visible, and you're going to get an error saying tried clicking on this element, but it wasn't visible. And you're only going to get that sometimes. Sometimes it's going to work just fine. And so it's really a frustrating issue to have to deal with. So what I do, I find the element that does the animation. It'll have a transform on it, and then it's also going to have a transition on it. That number here is how long that animation takes to run. So we could actually change that to 5 seconds. And now it takes 5 seconds to open and close. One thing you could do, let's see how long it took. You could, in your test, get that value and using some complicated code to get that value and pass it into your browser.pause. That way you don't have this hard-coded 500. But in my opinion, it's just not worth it for the pain that it causes. So I just do a browser pause, then we click it, then we hit search, and then we check it. So that's the tablet view. Let's go ahead and run that just to double check, because I don't think there's anything too fancy about that. Oh, you know what? I didn't build out the filter toggle. Oh, well, never mind. We won't worry about that. One of the reasons why they have this this functionality where it shows a filter menu is because in our traditional test, we have to have a custom function here where we click the filter button. When we go to write this in the new method, because we're not taking the screenshot until the very end, we can run through it in the laptop view, so we don't have to click that filter toggle button, and then it captures the page, sends it to the ultrafast grid, then it does the resize down and takes the screenshots. So we don't have to worry about this extra bit of functionality in our tests, because our test only gets to that state in the desktop view, and then it changes everything around. You might want to have a test out there that checks that on a tablet view, the filter functionality does work like you would expect. But the nice thing is we don't have to have that for all of our tests. So we can have a specific test that says in tablet view, when I click filters, it should open the filter menu, and when I click it again, it should close it. But when you actually go to test the filters themselves, you don't have to have that test. And that's really nice to minimize the number of tests that you have to have. So let's go ahead and run this through the new method, which is our new modern test. So we're going to create a new file, call it task2.js. And this is going to be in our modern test. If we open up task 1, that's over here. I'm just going to copy all this over. And I'm going to leave this in place for now. And we'll see about moving this to our configuration file if we have time. I'm kind of running low on time. So I want to just get to the test itself. So we have and I'll move this over here so we can kind of see the two side by side. We'll leave all that in place. And then what we want to do is copy basically that. Gary the Gnat is back. And we'll save it. And now we'll go back to our terminal. And I need to specify that we're running this in the modern test v1 / test 2. We will run this. I didn't have to do that before because I only had the one task 2 file. So this is going to resize the browser to what we want it to be. I think it might not even do that. Oh, it did. Oh, it resized it down to where the filters don't show. Whoops. And the reason for that is it sets the width and the height there. So we can just go here. Whoops. Oh, and then I need to add that in our page object. What was that called? Filter toggle. Get $filter toggle. I'm going to return. Oh my gosh. $use. Oh, figure it out, Kevin. Close. Class open filters. Yeah, I'll just go with that. Well, I think what I'll do is I'll use a link text selector of filters. Save that. And run that again. Let's see how that goes. I got about 10 minutes left in our 2 hours. It should have clicked it. Oh, it did click it. There we go. It picked 2. That's good. I bet, oh, you know, it's running it through the Ultrafast grid right now. Fairly certain. And that's why it's delayed. I don't think it's actually failing. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So it did pass. We don't really have any assertions in our test here. We're only running eyes.check. So if we go back to our Applitools dashboard, you're going to see a new task. And here is the screenshot. So there's no baseline image yet. Here is our screenshot. What I don't like is that it's cut off, and I think there's a way around this. But let's go to, and it says it's passed because there's no baseline. Here it's a little bit better. It's not as cut off, but there's those two. So I want to take the full page screenshot, and I think I can set that. How do I set that? You know what? There were some notes for the modern approach here. Keep all the settings same as task 1, but set the task name as 2 and set the step name as filter results. I actually don't know what the step name is. After you filter for black shoes and see the results, take a screenshot of the product grid section by setting the result grid. Okay. Create bug regions and mark the steps that fail as you did in first task. So basically this is saying instead of taking a screenshot of the entire page, let's only do the product grid section, which is really helpful. See the result grid, element IDs, product grid. So let's see how to do that, because in our test, you see we're passing in the target window. We don't want to take the full window. We want to do just the test. Oh, a comment saying you pass window.fully to eyes.check. Cool. So I think it would be like eyes. Oh no, like that. And this will take the full screenshot. So let's do both methods. And thank you for that comment. That really, this has been, y'all have been really helpful last time and this time as well. JavaScript. So this is the target window, but we want to do by ID. I don't think target region. I mean, I can do that. I just wonder if I can pass in a WebdriverIO element instead. So what I'm going to do, go to the SDK documentation. Available SDKs. Where are you? WebDriver. Yeah, let's see if check settings. Trying to see in their examples what they have. Target.region. This is still WebdriverIO. Web element, eyes web element. I don't know what web element is. So I'm going to try it with their traditional method, and then I'm going to try it with the WebdriverIO method. So the traditional method is by passing in using this by, which is needs to be imported through the eyes WebdriverIO. Yeah. Okay, let's run that. And while I do that, I'm going to go back into my dashboard and delete this task because I don't want those baselines to exist on the page and kind of have that issue. This is another really nice thing about this dashboard is that I was able to get rid of those baselines like super quick. I didn't have to open up a Finder or any sort of file path or anything to make it happen. So this is going to resize. It's going to go to my other monitor, and I'm going to move it over just so you can see the filter is running. Now it's filtered. And actually, I shouldn't move it because, well, I think I can move it. I don't think it's a problem to move it because it's not actually taking the screenshot at this point. It saves the source code and then takes the screenshot. There we go. So now it's done. We go back here, refresh, and we have unresolved. Oh, there's actually two screenshots. That's right. So it does look like it kept the baseline from before, even though I deleted it. I got to figure that out. But yeah, here is that full page. And we want to go ahead and save it. It moves us to the next one. Here is just that single element. So that looks good. That single product grid. Again, here's now the full page. So in purple/pink magenta, this is the diff between the two. And now it's taking it fully. So we want to keep that. This is the larger products grid. We'll keep that. That extra white space is just because it stretches across. That product grid takes the full thing, not just the two. Yeah, you can see here it's kind of part of that right there. There's the full screen page. Same thing. And now this is just in our different versions. Cool, cool, cool. All that looks so good. And keep going. Yes. I'm going to do that. And save it. Now it's saved and all of it passed, so everything looks good there. I have another question from Mike. Says, haven't heard of Applitools, looks nice. Yep, it does look nice. And I should mention again, this stream is sponsored by them. They're helping pay the bills so that I can do this free stream for you. So a lot of appreciation goes to them for helping with that. And I think it's great, and I'm trying not to be too preachy about them or too salesman-y about them, but I do think it's a really nice product. So check them out. And then another question of what's your experience working with testing websites built with React? It's really good, really good experience doing that. You know, you have your complications because React applications are complicated, but with WebdriverIO, which is the tool I'm using here, they have a lot of support for React, and React almost makes it easier for testing because of how clean they keep the HTML. They there's not as many hidden elements in when you have a React app. So say you have something like a product grid here. If we go to here, we have this product grid. And if I did a filter on it by my color, what could happen in other frameworks is it would still have all the other elements in place, but not just have them hidden. And so that complicates things a little bit. In React, and this, I don't think this is using React. It didn't look like it was using React, but in React, it completely replaces that HTML. And so you don't have any hidden elements. It's just what you see is what's in the code. For the most part, there's some exceptions to that. But also with WebdriverIO, you do have these React shadow DOM selectors that are available that are built in. That was from the community, and that's really nice. So yeah, I think it's not as complicated as you would expect it to be, given how complicated how complicated React can be, and the website itself can be. So anyway, let's try and finish this up. I want to do one more thing. I'm gonna comment that out, and then here, instead of passing that Applitools version, I'm going to pass the product grid in, and let's see if that works. You know what? I'm gonna save a little bit of time, so I'm just gonna comment out all of those to try and get it to run a little bit quicker. Just so you know, next time we're going to be going through task number 3. That's going to be in a week. And then that should finish all the tests that we have. If I was doing the full hackathon, I would make sure everything's like really polished. One thing we didn't do in this is we didn't do any of the assertions that I mentioned about like the product names. So these product names, we didn't check for it. And part of the reason is that Applitools takes care of that for us. We don't have to write any tests for it because it's all part of that. So it looks like it passed. that was happy. Oh no, it didn't. It says no current image. Oh man, did I mess it up by... Yes. Okay, so there's only one viewport. Huh. I have a feeling that this didn't work. So, hey chat, anybody know if you can pass in WebdriverIO elements to the eyes check function? Please let me know. In the meantime, we're going to return this to what it was. And I'm going to delete this task. Don't really need it. Then we are going to run this against version 2 of the site. So the new version of the site, and we're going to see some failures and kind of let you see in Applitools what those failures look like. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're getting there. We're getting there. We just passed the 2-hour mark. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. And I forgot again to do chapter markers, like kind of time stamps on what part of sorry, as I go through different parts of this whole task of building these tests. I want to kind of break it out so people who are viewing after the live stream's over, you can view it on replay, get a better option for it. You can, but it has to be target region, and then you pass the element in. I see. So instead of doing by product ID, I would do, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's how that would work. Home.productGrid. You could also just pass the selector as a string in region. So I could probably do something like that, but I want to use my page object. Whoops. So I want to do it like that. So in theory, that should work. And let's go back here, and we're going to have some failures because of, because it didn't filter it right. It didn't show the filter right. So you see here, we've got a new item in there that's not supposed to be there. Also, we have the search bar is showing on the new version when it shouldn't. And this is one of the reasons why they said just look at the product grid, because there's all this other stuff that is different. That's a bigger issue than just the filtering functionality. So we're going to go to, how do I get to the next? Those are differences. I'll say no, and then it jumps me to the next one. So this is just the product grid. So you can see a few differences. It's missing these items. Well, that's no good. And then it has this added item in there. So we would hit no here as well. But it does check that the text is right, that the image is right. If those images were wrong or different, then it would catch that for us. And we didn't have to write any extra tests here to do that. It just automatically checks that. And say like you want to make sure that, you know, sometimes this price changes, like it's on special. So what we could do is we create a content region, I think, and like we build it there. And in theory, I'm not entirely certain if this would work, but basically there are ways in Applitools that you can say, I want this to check that the text is there, but if it goes on special or not, I don't want it breaking my test. So you can add these regions that kind of define that. And so I keep forgetting what all the different regions are. It talks about it in a few places, and I wonder if we're going to get that on the next test. But this all failed, so we'll close that and all that. So what I'll do is come back in here, pause that, and I just want to test that this works. So I'll do the same thing where I commented out everything else to make this run. And then that's going to wrap it up for us when, oh, you know what? I don't want to do version 2. I want to do the old version. I'm going to mark, let's see, can I mark all of these as failed? Selected tests, reject, and save. So when you reject it, it doesn't update the baseline. If I were to have accepted it, it would update the baseline to the new version for all of these. And the baseline is like the image that's being compared to when it takes the new screenshot. Oh, what did I do? I think I was messing with it again, so it didn't like it. This is one of the benefits of running your test in headless mode. And you know, I bet this would work in headless mode. Because it's only, oh shoot, region method called with argument of unknown type. Ah, so it doesn't like that. I could do selector, I think. Try that. I don't want to do anything while it's... what will I be covering in part 3 is a question from the chat, and that's a great question. You want a preview of what's coming next? Well, I will give you that preview in just a moment. Basically, it's going to be task number 3 of the tests. Okay, looks like that worked. So just to show you, that's productgrid.selector. So you can, this is a WebdriverIO bit. And it's really helpful for instances like this when you need the selector of your element reference. Yeah. So here it just returns this, well, it returns this string right here, passes that in. So that way I don't have to have this string duplicated between my test and my page object. I can kind of use it. You do have to be careful, because if you have nested items, the only selector that's passed in is this one. So it could end up selecting more elements than you wanted to. Let's double check in Applitools that it did get the right value. So this is mad because, oh, I don't know. I don't know why it still took a screenshot, because I commented that out. So who knows? Ah, that's what I was looking for there. So no current image. So did it not take an image? Oh man. Maybe that doesn't work. I mean, it looked like it worked, but then it didn't. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more. So let's take a final look at what we're going to be covering in part 3. So I wanted to create bug regions, mark the steps that fail as you did in that first. I'm not going to worry about that for now. Maybe we'll take a look at that next time. But task 3 is what we're going to cover in the next one, which is click the first black shoe to navigate to its detail page. Check if everything looks good and accurate. Import the test result, and then take a full page screenshot, and that's it. So yeah, we will write a test that clicks the first shoe and does a lot of checks. We're going to check that it has the right title, that it has the right SKU number, that the description is right, that it has the right size and the right quantity, and all sorts of stuff that we have to check. But when we get to the modern version, it's just going to be taking a full page screenshot and going from there. And I wonder how much is different between the different versions. I don't know. So that's that. If you want to learn more about testing, I have a Web App Testing Guidebook available for you. It's on sale right now. It's 99% complete. I've got some polishing work to do on it, some editing feedback to get in place, but there's a ton of content in there. I don't know if you noticed, there's over 250 pages and over 60,000 words. Of course, a lot of those words are code, but it's a lot of content. And it's only ebook version right now. I might get a paper version published that you can buy and kind of print on demand if you want, but for now it's ebook. What I'm focusing on right now is updating my course. And if you want to hear about updates, just send me go to Learn WebdriverIO, and this page will be changing soon. But for now, you can send me your email address, and basically I'll give you a heads up when I have new videos out for this course. I'm going to revamp all of these videos that I have and update them for WebdriverIO version 6 using a lot of the content that I have in the book. So basically taking this book and turning it into a course. So if you want to hear about that, I'm hoping to get 10 videos out in the next month or two. Open up early access for folks at a discounted price, and also a option to do one-on-one training with me as part of that early access. And yeah, take a look at that and let me know what you think, and get your email address in there and all the good stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And until next time, have fun testing.